Interesting. Oh, hey guys, it's Josh Reviews. Happy Halloween! Ooh. So, damn my hair. I need to get a haircut. Anyways, guys, today's Halloween, and you're gonna get a double feature spook. Trick or treats. So, this was a movie that had been on my radar for quite some time. I'd heard about it, seen the poster, was like, looks kind of cool. Never got around to watching it. Don't know why. Anywho, so this movie is... this movie's weird, okay? Let me just start off the review by saying that. This movie's weird. So this movie is about a woman who puts her wife puts her husband in an insane asylum. The movie just kind of starts off with it. Like, the movie opens with these two guys arriving at this person's home, and they put this dude in a mental institution. There's no explanation as to why. They just do it. And it goes on for way too long. Cuts to a few years later, and the woman remarried, and they're leaving their son behind on Halloween night, and they hire a babysitter. Gee, has that ever sound familiar? I wonder. So, she has to babysit this kid who, by the way, if you thought Jeremy from Halloween Ends was a little brat, this kid easily takes the cake. This kid is super obnoxious, super annoying. I hated him. But I kind of loved him at the same time. He was hilarious. Sounds weird. Didn't mean that in a weird way. Sorry. This kid is super douchey. But he was also kind of funny because of that. So this girl has to babysit this kid, and he's like this wannabe magician. Picture him as Shelly from Shelly, right? Shelly from Friday the 13th Part 3, the one who gives Jason the hockey mask. So she has to babysit this kid, and the husband, who was put in a mental institution, breaks out, and we know, Bella, we know. Sorry to hear that. So this guy, who was locked away in the mental institution, he decides, I'm going to escape today, of all days, Halloween night. That's totally when you decide to do that. And he breaks out and he vows vengeance, and he mistakes the girl for being his wife, even though they don't look anything alike. And that's the movie. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this movie other than the fact that it was pretty boring. I'm going to be honest. Not a lot happens in this movie. Now, I'm okay with a movie having a very simplistic plot and not much going on, as long as the conversations or scenes and dialogue. I brought this up before in some past reviews. Hellfest is a great example. I like the characters in Hellfest. I like the conversations that they have. It feels natural, real. And even though there's not a lot happening when we spend time with the characters, it's overall just a fun slasher. It's a fun movie just to kind of kick back, relax, just watch a bunch of fun, entertaining characters, just, have a good time, and then, tragically meet their end. But nope, not in this movie. The most interesting thing that'll happen is when it cuts back to the guy who's trying to get back to the house, and dude, there were so many random weird what the fuck moments in this movie. This barely even classifies as a slasher. There's maybe 2 kills, and I kept I was expecting more with a concept like this, because it's a cool concept, admittedly, but they don't do shit with it, and I was really let down by that. I was really let down. There's a lot of nothing and a lot of padding. Now, I heard that this film had some production issues, which makes sense. But even with the production issues aside, I feel like this story is not that interesting or engaging. The only saving grace for this movie is that some of it is unintentionally hilarious. the one I don't remember. Again, I'm not good with names, but so I'm just gonna keep referring to him as the kid. The kid character just keeps bullying and harassing the babysitter. It honestly became like every like 5 minutes, this kid is pulling some sort of prank on this girl, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. This kid is pulling the most evil, diabolical, mean-spirited pranks on this girl. I felt so bad, but it was kind of funny, especially with how many times this chick falls for it. You think after like the third prank, it's like, okay, I know what to expect. But this kid will keep pulling pranks and she'll just fall for it every fucking time. And I kept thinking to myself, if I was in her shoes, would I keep falling for it? On the one hand, I'm glad that she's like, oh, you know, I care. You know, I want to make sure this kid's okay because you're a babysitter. That's your job to look after the kid. But at the same time, it's like, enough is enough. I'm going to stop falling for it. Like, you get yourself hurt, like, your problem. Okay. But I was like, damn, this girl keeps falling for it several times, and it just became laughable. Honestly, those moments were probably the saving grace for the film because, again, like I said, the film was pretty boring. Anytime it cut back to the serial killer was pretty funny too, but honestly, those scenes were kind of far in between. Honestly, the most that happens in this movie is that the kid will pull pranks on the babysitter. Trick-or-treaters will show up at the door and they'd have like a weird interaction. At one point, these kids show up at the door and the woman they say trick-or-treat, and she just gets the bag of candy and chucks it at them and then closes the door. That was funny. So little moments like that made the movie more entertaining than what it actually was, because this movie was pretty boring, I'm not going to lie. The killer had decent motive. I was into the motivation. Like, you know, he's trying to get revenge for being put in a mental institution for like years with no rhyme or reason. I think they kind of allude to the fact that he was just kind of cuckoo, but that was my assumption. That was kind of just what I assumed. They never really actually like spell it out, which I guess I don't need the explanation because he is the killer of the movie, but it's like, I understand why he wants to break out. What I don't understand is how he got put there. What's the motivation behind that? I feel like that just was kind of swept under the rug a little bit. And also, because this is classified as a slasher, you are probably expecting a lot of kills. There's like 2 kills in this movie, and they're pretty disappointing. Now, again, I'm not that big into like gore or whatever, but like, I always appreciate the practical side when it comes to like kills in films. Like, if there's a lot of, because for some reason horror movies just love to make kills super graphic and bloody, and typically what you'll see in a slasher is really cool practical effects and makeup, and none of that here. This movie honestly could go for a PG-13 rating if not for like a few scenes. I forget if there's nudity in this film, but honestly, this movie could have gone for a PG-13 rating. I'm being completely honest. And the film also ends very abruptly. I'll admit, it was kind of cool how it ended at first, but then it just ended with one of those little, like, rah, gotcha moments, and I was like, what? I was super confused by the way this movie ended. I was like, where'd that come from? That was out of nowhere. What's up, dog? Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. She's a cute little dog, aren't you? You're cute. Anyways, yeah, there's not really that much to be said about this movie. It's pretty bland, pretty forgettable. Despite a few moments that are pretty funny, so. You want to give the rating this time? Yeah. We're going to give it a, what do you say? Okay. We're going to give it a D. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, this movie's getting a D. So, anyways, guys, happy Halloween. Stay tuned for my next review, because next review we're going to be ending off Halloween month with 2018's Halloween. Woo!